Hi
Sure.
everyone, this is Rajith from CYCLERY. Today we're going to talk about understanding e-bikes. E-bikes are just like another bikes, wherein it's supported with a battery and a motor, which helps you ride faster, ride better, and ride with ease. To talk more about it, I have two people from here. Choose My Bicycles. I have I K Rohit, who is the CEO of Choose My Bicycle, and I have Akshay Pillai, who is the CEO of Choose My Bicycle. They are good friends, and thanks for coming for the session. I think this will be really helpful for all of us.
Yeah, I think first up, thanks, Rajit. And I think thanks for starting a platform like this. I'm sure a
Yeah,
lot of riders across the country are definitely going to benefit. And we're still
true.
early days, both for cycling
Yeah,
as
that's
well as
true.
e-bikes.
Yeah, correct.
So great stuff. And thanks for having us. Always a pleasure to have
Yeah.
you.
Thanks,
Welcome,
Rajit, for
Akshay.
hosting us. Thanks for hosting
Cool.
us. I know this has been long overdue from our end,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
we have got
Everyone keep
the
a
ball rolling.
keep a note of Akshay's face. He's gonna come back soon again. Okay. So the
Yeah,
reason why we thought of doing e-bikes, as you said, it's too early to start and talk about e-bikes because right now it's a normal bicycle or premium bicycle surge is happening. But if you see the European countries, 50% of their bikes are coming from e-bikes. So then we thought like, why we shouldn't discuss about it. So we are
yeah,
going to talk about e-bikes right now. So I'll just start straight away. I'm just going to
sure,
ask like, what are e-bikes and why are they so popular in European countries?
sure. Yeah, I think first up, Ajit, let's take a step back. Even before it
Yep.
became a craze in Europe, in the
Yep.
early 90s, specifically 91, China actually started the e-bicycle culture. And it
Okay.
was driven by two things. They decided that as a nation, they were going to put e-bicycle technology as a goal. And you know
Okay.
that the way China operates, anything that's put across by the government is then followed to the T. So this
Okay.
happened in the early 90s, and this was followed by all of the urban centers
Okay.
passing legislature that ensured motorbikes were almost
Yep.
banned or prohibited in, I would say, in the central parts of most cities. So this
Okay.
forced people to kind of buy electric bicycles, and they
Okay.
started very small, of course, in 91. And in a matter of 2 decades, it was able to grow
Okay.
to like a 20 million unit per annum, I would say,
It's
size.
amazing. Yeah, true.
Yeah. So seeing this, I think it was towards 2008, 2009 when Europe really woke up to the e-bicycle culture. And
Yeah.
four or five things that kind of helped them grow. I think the first is as people, Europeans are far more in touch with nature and, doing their bit.
Yeah.
So I think the first trigger was that at least we're riding something that's eco-friendly.
Correct.
Second, I think the fact that you could get across or get around a city far quicker, beating all your traffic jams, and your commute times are a lot shorter. I think
True.
that also
Yeah.
got people onto e-bicycles. And the
Yep.
last 2 points, I think the government had a very crucial role to play. They set up bicycle tracks and
Yeah.
not only set it up, but also
Yeah.
enforced that the rest of the traffic system aligned
Yep.
and helped, bicycles move around. And
True.
finally, I think the very fact that the economical aspect of using an e-bicycle far
Yep.
outweighs any other mode of transport. So I think these were the
True.
four triggers for e-bicycles in Europe. Yeah,
Yeah. And to add to that, even in European countries, it's some more way of saving their taxes. If you want to
true.
save tax, you can always buy a e-bike and then compensate,
Yeah.
for the taxes. So, in India, it's generally perceived as some bicycle with a battery. How does this work,
Yeah.
to be like, make it more simple?
Yeah, good question. I think the first thing is we'll have to change the very name of an e-bike. So it's
Yeah.
not an e-bike. It's either
Hmm.
referred to as an e-bicycle or a pedelec. So the
Pedelec. Yeah,
reason
okay.
the reason why I'm saying this is it can very easily be construed as a e-scooter, e-motorcycle going forward. So I
Yeah.
think people globally refer to it as a pedelec for the simple
Okay.
reason that the very basics, the very I would say underpinning of an e-bicycle is a cycle. So on that
Okay.
mechanical cycle, there is an electric assisted option that is added. So
Okay.
the ideal way to ride an e-bicycle is in the hybrid mode, which means that
Okay.
they ideally want you to cycle and then be
Okay.
assisted by battery and motor power. So
Okay.
that's just a very overarching statement. But if I had to break it down, and I'm going to refer a few notes because since it's technical, I don't want to miss any. So the first
Yeah.
part is, of course, the mechanical part, which is like any other standard bicycle. Over
Okay.
this, you have the electrical components. So the first is a motor. Now,
Okay.
majority of the motors used are referred to as BLDC motors or brushless DC motors. And the
Okay.
adoption of this is in your fans and so many other appliances. They're very, very hardy, low maintenance motors. That's the first electrical part. The second is your battery.
Okay.
Currently, majority of the e-bikes come with lithium-ion batteries, so which have been
Okay.
proven over close to a decade plus. And I think
Okay.
that's most common in all e-bikes that we find in India and in the globe. The third
Okay.
part is, of course, the battery management system. So it's almost like the intelligent component of that battery, and this
Okay.
ensures the safety of the battery. For example, if you're supposed to charge a battery for 3 hours, this will
Okay.
ensure it cuts off after it's fully charged, so it doesn't allow
Okay.
burnout, so on and so forth. It also has a
Correct.
cutoff if there is a sudden surge in power. It
Yeah.
decides which cell has to be utilized as and when
Okay.
one cell is kind of completed, and it also
Okay.
talks to the motor in terms of discharge of power. So that would be the third component. The fourth
Okay.
component is a controller. So now this controller is
True.
how the motor decides what power, what delivery it will give to the user. And also in
Yeah.
certain countries, it will cap the top speed. So the controller is pretty
It's
much
a
the
different mode
brain.
kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like your processor in a computer, if I had to
Okay.
give you an analogy. And the last two parts would be the sensors. So you have two kinds of
Yeah.
sensors in an e-bike. One is a cadence
Okay.
sensor and a torque
Okay.
sensor. So how a
True.
cadence sensor works essentially is now as you are riding, every pedal you take, it gives you
Okay.
an additional boost on every single pedal. Whereas the torque
Correct.
sensor works slightly differently. It gauges
Yeah.
how much pressure you put, and if you're in an incline, it gives you a more surge of power. So that's the fifth component electrically.
So torque is more related to the motor you are saying.
So both are related to the motor. It's just
Yeah.
that the cadence sensor only focuses on a pedal. So if you
Okay.
do 10 pedals, it will give you 10
Yeah.
thrusts. Whereas a torque sensor will only give you
Yeah.
power when you need it.
Okay.
So it's far more efficient. And finally, you have ride modes. So the first
Yeah.
ride mode in an electric bicycle is that you can switch off all the electronics and ride
Yeah.
it like a regular cycle. The
True.
second is what they call as a pedal assist. So usually you
Yeah.
have anywhere between 3 to 5 levels, which give you
Yeah.
varying amounts of assistance on every pedal.
True.
And the last mode is the throttle mode, which most Indians love.
Yeah.
So sit
That's
back,
true.
they don't cycle, and they just use it like a scooter or a bike. So uh, very quickly, I think this is the
Yeah.
functioning of
So
an e-bicycle.
yeah, that comes to the next question. Like, what are the types of e-bike?
Yeah,
People, India is more of throttle, as you said, so we see
yeah,
in other countries, you see more of road bikes, EMTBs
yes,
and e-hybrid bikes and foldables. What are
yeah.
the types of e-bikes, which
Yeah. So I think before I get into the classification of
yeah,
e-bikes, the e-bikes appear in either two forms. One is
yeah,
what is referred to as a pedelec. So a
okay,
pedelec usually only has a pedal assist mode, which means you have no throttle, and it
okay,
only so it wants the user, or it forces the user to cycle and give it
okay,
that assistance at every pedal. So that is a
okay,
pedelec, which is only pedal assisted. Now, then in
okay,
countries like India and America and few other parts of the world, you have
yeah,
both the pedal assist and the throttle option. So how it
okay,
works is it's an either or. You either ride it as in pedal assist mode, or you sit
okay,
back and just use the throttle.
throttle,
Yeah.
okay.
So that would
So
be
are the
the
e-bikes
types.
faster? Yeah. So what are the
Yeah.
e-bikes? So that the throttle will add another question. Like, are the e-bikes faster?
Yeah. So when you talk about speed, I think the good thing is that the regulations around the world have, has, I would say, kind of restricted the e-bike becoming another motorcycle or another scooter. So, for example,
Okay,
regulation and legislature both in European Union as well as in India restricts an e-bicycle to a top speed of 25 kilometers. So what this means
yeah,
is even if I use that throttle, straight away the
okay,
motor cuts off at 25 kilometers per hour. And
okay,
even if I use the pedal assist mode, the peak power
yeah,
is stopped at 25 kilometers. Over and above that, of course, human power. If you have Let's say
Yeah.
if you're a racer and you get great watts that
You
you
want to
can
be more aggressive.
throw out, yeah, you can take it up to 35, 40, but that's more the human power. So that's
Yeah.
essentially how e-bikes are split. And you have various categories. So you have e-bikes for commute, which
Yep.
include folding and non-folding. You have e-bikes
Yeah.
for recreation, and you have e-bikes for
Okay.
sport or fitness, and finally
Okay.
e-bikes if you want to go mountain biking or touring.
Okay. How safe are e-bikes in India?
It's a good question because the minute an electronical or electrical component is involved, people definitely
Yeah.
bring up the safety angle. So for
Okay.
starters, I think the fact that e-bicycles have been adopted in Europe and in, let's say, the western part of the world. I think safety has come about to be the most important component in this form factor of transportation. So what's happened
Okay.
is, even though a lot of the e-bicycles today produced have components coming out of China, they are all
Okay.
certified to conform to European standards. So you would look
Okay.
out for what is known as the CE marking on
Yeah.
a specific
Correct.
motor or on a, let's say, battery. And by and
Okay.
large, most of them conform to these international standards. So that's one. While saying
Okay.
this, I think India is still in a very nascent stage as far as defining what an
Okay.
e-bicycle is. And unlike the
Okay.
bikes and cars, which today have Bharat stand BS6 and so on and so forth,
Yeah. True.
e-bicycles still don't have these standards. So we're
Okay.
actually working very closely with both OEMs and governmental, let's say, organizations to define
Organizations.
these
Yeah.
standards, because then a consumer can go about saying, okay, it's got a BIS standard. I can,
Okay.
with confidence, say that the government has certified this safe. So
Okay.
that's as far as safety is concerned. So I think it's still early days, but there are a few
Yeah.
ways on how to identify if an e-bike is safe. And one of them is, of course, to look out for the CE
CA.
sticker.
Okay.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
second is to look at certified test rides done by experts. And
Yeah.
also, third, to look at brands that have used certified approved OEM brands.
Correct. And when you talk about fitness, people would prefer a
Yeah.
regular bicycle than an e-bike. So
Yeah.
will e-bike help for exercise? That's my next question.
Yeah. So I mean, it's a very funny question for India because I was speaking to a friend of mine who's been, let's say, in the e-bike industry for about 2 decades in Europe. He works out of Germany. And
Okay.
he keeps telling me, he's like, why do you need a throttle in India, Rohit? Why, like in Europe, we're not allowed to have the throttle. I said, for
Okay.
starters, we always love to have that, option to, I would say,
Acceleration.
get off a traffic signal, or just knowing that we have the option. But
Yeah.
essentially, the e-bike is really good for fitness and exercise for the simple reason that, let's say, on a regular cycle, you'd be doing
Yeah.
about 20 to 30 kilometers as a beginner in the cycling
Yeah.
space. But
True.
with an e-bike, using human power and electric assist, you can double
Yeah.
that distance. So straight away, you're able to
Okay.
burn more. You're able to push those boundaries. So I think that's one. Second,
Yeah.
what it does is usually your fitness routines are very, very boring. So this adds that
Okay.
fun factor because it gives you that almost like that turbo kind of feel.
You got to
And I
push
think,
yourself. Yeah.
yeah. So by and large, I think it can be used to the positive, but there are people who
Yeah.
just buy an electric bicycle and then use the throttle. So
Throttle.
they're
There are people who
definitely,
only use throttle. Yeah. I've seen people.
yeah. So they're definitely not
Okay.
the ones getting fitter, but yeah, I think it can be
Yeah.
used as a tool for exercise in the near future. Yeah.
Yeah. In terms of battery and motor, there are like different kinds of battery in the market, different types. How do you choose it? What is the right kind of battery? What is the right kind of motor?
Yeah, so I think these are the two most important components. So starting with the battery, a lot of people are confused as to how do I even decode a battery, right? So I think even
Okay.
before you go into that, you first have to understand how many kilometers are you going to use an e-bicycle for, right? So what is your usage
Yeah.
parameter? Some could have 10 kilometers, some 20, some even 50. So I think that
Yeah.
would be the first question you'd ask before deciding the battery size or
Battery.
capacity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now in India, all batteries are represented in what they call as ampere hour. So you'll see something
Okay.
known as AH, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. AH.
H.
Okay.
Yeah. So this could range from 5 AH to as high as 17 AH. Now, again,
Okay.
this is an electrical term, so a lot of people won't understand it. So what you should
Okay.
do is, this is a very simple formula. Maybe you can post it later in the group, but
Yeah.
just to see how much a battery can give you in terms of absolute mileage, you take the volt. So in India,
Okay.
most of the motors and batteries are about 36 volt. So you take the
Okay.
volt, you multiply it by the ampere hour. So for example, I'm going to multiply it by
Okay.
7.8, and then you
Okay.
divide that by the capacity of the motor. So in India, motors
Okay.
are mostly 250 watts. And then you multiply
Is
that by
that
the
the
max.
maximum? Like 250 is the maximum? I've read somewhere it's maximum.
So you have more than 250, but the problem is the minute it goes above 250 watts, you have to register
Yeah.
the electric bicycle. So as long as it's
Okay.
250 and below, you don't need a license, you don't need registration, and
Okay.
you can just ride it as a regular mode of transport. So if you use this
Okay.
formula, you can then arrive at what is your minimum range. And
Okay.
if you use it in throttle mode, you're likely to get, let's say, for an 7.8 Ah battery with 36 volt and 250 watt, you'll get a minimum of 28 kilometers per charge.
Yeah.
But if you use
Okay.
your pedal assist, you can get as high as about 48 to 50 kilometers per charge. So that's how you would
Correct.
go about deciding the battery. The motor
Yeah.
in India, it's all 250 watts. So I wouldn't recommend
Okay.
anything above, because then you have to register it.
Registrate. So coming about to the motor, there are motor in the mid hub motor as well as in the center on the bottom bracket part, and even for the battery which are detachable and not detachable. So how do
Yeah.
you differentiate that?
Sure. So I think the first option, or the most common option, especially that you see in India, is what they call as
Okay.
a hub drive. So
Okay.
there are two options. One is you keep it in the rear hub or in the
Okay.
front hub. So I'm only going to talk about the rear hub, because front hub is very,
Yeah, that is
very
very common. Yeah.
rarely. Yeah. So now in
True.
the rear hub, what happens is this attaches itself with the wheel,
True.
right? And then it's connected to the battery, which gives it power. So when you're riding, you almost get the sense that you're being pushed. So that's how
Okay.
the rear hub
From
works.
rear. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and the advantages of a rear hub is that it's fairly small and compact. Second,
Okay.
it's very economical. So you'll see a lot of the entry and mid-level bikes come with
True.
rear hub motors.
Yeah.
And third, it's very low on maintenance, because it's a complete concealed unit, and
Okay.
it's very easy to use. Whereas when you come to the mid-drive,
Yeah.
these are motors that are attached directly to the bottom bracket, and thereon
Okay.
power the crank. So the advantage straight away, there is no lag, you have better
Okay.
efficiency, and you
Yeah.
have better power. But you find mid-drive motors mostly on high-end bikes, and
Yeah.
in India's case, it's very unaffordable, because they're all coming at about 80,000 plus.
Yeah.
But if I had to peg the two, I would say for India, the rear hub motor is ideal. And as we
Okay.
mature as a market, we will move into the mid-drive motor once we become, I would say, once we evolve as e-bicycle customers.
The mid drive also I read like it balances your weight, in
Correct.
terms of riding. So how do
Yeah.
you explain that?
No, spot on. Because what happens is your center of gravity is
Yeah.
exactly at the point where power is being generated. So, in
Okay.
terms of balance, and especially when you're going for a powerful e-bicycle, a mid-drive motor is
Yeah.
definitely better. But when you talk
Okay.
about the e-bike, the rear hub, it has its disadvantages, because it almost has this pulling sensation from the rest of the bike, and
Okay.
so I would think it's a function of cost, nothing more.
And how about the batteries, detachable ones and the
Yeah,
ones which are inbuilt in the frame
sure.
down to?
Yeah, so because India is a price sensitive market, a lot of the brands have introduced an integrated non-detachable battery, because what happens is this is
Yeah.
concealed within the frame. So it gives you
Okay.
the sense you're riding a regular bicycle, but in most
Yeah.
cases, the bottom tube has the lithium-ion battery. Uh,
Yeah.
this is done for two reasons. One, of course, they want to ensure that no theft happens in a country like India. And
It's
second,
heavier
they don't
also.
have to, yeah. And second is they don't have to invest in a case. So the battery case is a very expensive component of the overall bicycle.
Okay.
So in that case, it's integrated, non-detachable. And in case you need any kind of service, you'd have to take it to a certified technician or a store. Whereas the
Yeah.
second, which is I would think far more relevant in India, is the external detachable battery. So most of
Okay.
us Indians don't live on the ground floor or don't have a house which has
Yeah.
access to, let's say, a ground floor garage. So we'd have to
Okay.
either take, if in the case it had an integrated non-detachable battery, you'd have to take the entire bike
The
to a
entire
charging
bike.
point. Yeah,
Correct.
which is, I would say, not so user friendly.
Feasible.
But
Yeah.
when you talk about, when you talk about the detachable battery, you plug it off with a flick of a key and you take it to your
Yeah.
office or your home, charge it for 3 hours, and it's good to go the next day. So I think these are the two kinds of battery types you will
Batteries.
find. Yeah.
And unlike the regular bicycles, why the e-bikes are expensive,
So
I mean,
this is,
if you see a
this,
good e-bike, you would definitely want, even when once I went to Europe, I was able to ride the e-bike over there. And when I
yeah,
came back to India, we can't match that,
yeah.
the kind of
True,
efficiency, and you can't afford the other one also.
true. Yeah, I think interesting question, but the problem, Rajit, is that we're always comparing this to a bicycle.
I
So I don't
know.
think it's an apples to apples comparison. So if you
Yeah.
look at e-bicycles as an electric vehicle, right? It
Yeah.
is actually the cheapest electric vehicle compared to all your other options. So let's say a scooter, I'm
Yeah.
just talking about India for now.
Yeah.
Your cheapest scooter starts at about 80,000 to a lakh. Your
True.
cheapest
Electrics.
your electric scooter, sorry, my bad.
Yeah.
Your cheapest electric car is probably in the range of about 7 to 8 plus lakhs, right? I'm talking about a
Yeah.
full-fledged utility car. So
Yeah.
uh, relative to these, it's still, I would say, cheaper. But if you
Yeah.
have to draw that comparison to cycles, the only thing why an electric bicycle in India today starts at 25 and maybe operates at an average of about 50 to 60 is because
Yeah.
good quality electrical components cost. So you can,
Yeah.
I'm sure that in the future you'll have cheaper
You will have.
electric
Correct.
bicycles, but it will be at
Yeah.
the cost of quality. So I would
True.
actually urge a lot of consumers to look at it uh, at par with an electric scooter or an electric motorbike
Motor.
while looking at e-bikes, because the kind of technology that goes in, whether it's the lithium ion technology or the controller technology, is very, very advanced. So I
Yeah.
think, if you look at it
So
that way,
the
then
expensive, even
starting well.
India, people pay more for lighter stuffs. You pay for a carbon bike, you say it's
Yeah,
like lighter. So why the
yeah.
e-bikes are so hefty
Now
and
I think
expensive
Akshay will
as
give
well?
you, so Akshay will
Yeah,
give you
Akshay,
this experience of how two consumers bought the most expensive electric bicycle in India from BMK. So
yeah,
Yeah. So e-bikes, like Rohit rightly said, started off primarily as commuter and more for leisure. But
yeah,
recently, in the last 2 years, all the majority of your performance brands have
yeah.
started introducing their road e-bike versions of their road bikes, downhill
Road bikes, yeah,
MTBs,
yeah.
and everything. And they're all top of the spec
Okay,
bikes. In terms of even the drivetrains are all Ultegra or 105
true,
or Dura-Ace. And
correct.
people have started adopting that this thing, the way of using an e-bike for sport and performance as well. And
Okay,
it's grown in Europe, and it's taken on a
yeah,
lot of the market that a performance cycles did have. And we're
yeah.
slowly seeing it in India as well. Like last year, we had a couple from Delhi pick up
Okay,
the Bianchi E-Aria, which is
okay,
a top of the line Ultegra
okay,
full carbon bike with an
okay.
electric mid-drive motor as well as a good battery size. So these
Yeah.
people have been
These are
using the bikes,
e-road bike or
e-road
e-MTBs or
bikes, e-road
e-road
bikes,
bikes? Okay, okay.
e-road bikes. And
Yeah,
even recently, I've been reading up a lot where even the pro teams are looking at getting people on e-road bikes to help
okay,
their pro cyclists train. So while
okay.
climbing and all, and to give pace. So
True.
e-bikes in the performance segment is growing, and we are
Okay.
pretty confident that in the next 2 or 3 years, you will see a lot more performance-based e-bikes coming into the market, especially in the road bike sector and the MTB
Okay.
sector as well.
yeah.
Superb. So you mean to say, like, people who have been to Europe or other countries would understand it better than people in India, or like, how do you make them more convincing?
I probably, I'll just give you a quick reference. So I think a lot of people in India don't know how an electric bicycle feels, right?
Okay.
Trust me when I say this, like the first time we rode the entire range, I think the
Okay.
pure exhilaration, it's almost like that childlike joy, right? When you ride it,
Yeah.
because it's very difficult to explain, let's say, even over a video or even over a text review. I think the
Okay.
key to the e-bicycle market in India is that you get more people to ride it, experience it,
True.
and then own it. So I would think it's a
Yep.
very different, non-commercial approach to this segment. And I feel the more
Okay.
number of people who actually get on their friend's bike or rent an e-bike,
Yep.
e-bicycle that is, we
Okay.
will see that shift. And like you rightly said, how will a person who knows that a mid-drive motor is better? It's only by
Yep.
riding. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, that's
So do
about
you
it.
think this e-bikes would slowly come into the bike sharing system where more people can experience it? Do you think that?
Yeah, in a lot of ways, it's already come in, let's say in Bangalore. So you have a few players who do that. And
Okay.
I think urban centers are looking to adopt it for micro mobility because it truly solves that problem of getting, let's say, from a metro to your house or vice
True.
versa. So I think it will happen, but it'll happen in a very phased manner because security is a key issue in India. So yeah, that'll definitely help adoption going forward.
Okay.
Even holiday locations such as Goa
Yeah.
and a few of the other hill stations have
True.
started looking at
Yeah. A
bike
lot of
share,
resorts have
e-bike
taken
sharing,
it. Correct.
and they're seeing a lot of uptake in that because people get to experience an e-bicycle while experience the local culture of the place. Goa has
True.
adopted it quite well, and you
Yeah.
can actually see a lot of people who go to Goa, try it out, and then come back and they
Yeah.
want to experience the same thing in their city. So the bike
That's
sharing
true.
system is a good way
Yeah.
to experience an e-bike.
Yeah, and even the tourists who come from European countries, for if it's an elderly person, we can always take e-bikes, to explore hill
True,
stations in
true.
India and other places. So, in terms of bicycle, it's easy to maintain. You can do something and then get it repaired. How easy to maintain an e-bike? What is the kind of warranties and all those things which covers it? You
Yeah,
know, I'm sure if it goes off, we'll leave the bike over there and then take an Uber
sure.
or and then hit the
Yeah.
place.
So I think the very essence of electric vehicles is the fact that there are lesser moving parts compared to, let's say, an internal combustion engine. I'm just saying, as EVs as a whole, right? So
Yeah.
one of the key narratives that the world is saying is that since there are lesser moving parts, the chances of things going wrong are a lot less. So even if you
Better.
look at an average, the electric vehicle globally and in India will
Yeah.
not have the kind of mechanical trouble that an IC car will have. So now drawing the analogy to cycles, since
Okay.
the e-bicycle is built on the mechanical cycle, the
Okay.
mechanical part is very easy. It's identical. So if you have to get a
Yeah.
gear tuned, you can get it tuned. Everything
True.
else is the same.
Same.
The way they've built the pedelec and the e-bicycle is that it
Yeah.
is not in a manner where it will give you too many issues, at least for the first 3 to 5 years. So let me
Okay.
start with the first component, which is the motor. So the motor is a brushless DC motor, which almost never fails. I think the
Okay.
error rate is below 1%. So in the case,
Okay.
in the rare occurrence and in all the years that we've dealt with e-bicycles, I think we've just
Okay.
had one motor failure. But even though
Okay.
that happens, there is no, I would say, you don't need to take it to a mechanic. You just need to replace it. And most brands give anywhere between 1 to 2 years as a warranty for these parts. So that's with the
Okay.
motor, it's almost zero maintenance. When you come to
Yep.
the battery, because they have such intelligent battery management systems, or BMS as they call it, it
Yeah.
by and large tries to cut down the kind of faults that could be driven by surge in electric power when you're charging, or let's
Yeah.
say wrongful usage in whatever way. But in the case that
Okay.
it does again falter, it's a complete replacement. And again, these are all covered by
Yeah.
2 year warranties by most brands. So you
Correct.
don't have to take it anywhere to get it repaired. That ideology is not there with electric. And the last
Okay.
set of components are your electricals, which is your controller on top, that is your display,
Yeah.
and if you have a throttle. So these parts have a shelf life of over 5 years, unless, of course, you leave it in, let's say, excessive rain or sun. And
Yeah.
you're looking at a product that can last at least 3 years hassle free. And the
Okay.
ideal temperature to keep an electric bicycle, because It's got the lithium ion battery, and that obviously has a chemical composition that reacts to
Yeah.
the environment. You'd want to keep it
Okay.
between 3 degrees to about maybe 35 degrees. That's the optimum. So you don't want to keep
Okay.
it, let's say, in the soaring heat. To sum it up, it's
Yeah.
relatively easy to maintain an e-bicycle, provided you have those lists of do's and don'ts.
So you're saying the battery would life would be somewhere around 4 to 5 years minimum?
So battery life is calculated very differently. It's in
Okay.
terms of charge cycles. So what is a charge cycle?
Okay.
Every time you plug it into a regular 5 amp or 15 amp socket and you
Okay.
ensure that it charges fully, it's called a full charge cycle. So
Okay.
most brands promise anywhere between 500 to 800 charge cycles. So I'm going to go on the
Okay.
absolute lower end and say you can charge the battery 500 times. It works like your mobile phone. The
Yeah.
more you charge it,
True.
the lesser capacity. So at
Yep.
500 charge cycles, an average mileage of, let's say, 20 kilometers per charge, you're looking at
Okay.
10,000 kilometers. So rather than
Yep.
talking about in years, I would talk about in
Yeah. Sell the
kilometer range.
kilometers.
Yeah, so
Right.
500 to 800 should be an average charge cycle for the battery, after which you would
Yep.
have to replace it.
Okay. My next question is for Akshay. Since
Yeah.
you deal with a lot of brands, how do you choose a right e-bike brand? There are a lot of
Um,
brands.
so when choosing an e-bike, you have to first know why do you want to buy an e-bike. So is it
Okay.
to commute to work, or is it to run short errands, or is it
Okay.
just to as leisure, like you want to ride on the
Okay.
weekends where you don't want to put in too much effort like a regular cycle. So that's the
Yeah.
first thing you need to identify on a e-bicycle. And then
Okay.
once you get that, and
Yeah.
obviously the price point that you're willing to spend on the bike, you can
Yeah.
narrow down your options to what's available in the market. And
Yeah.
then based on that, you look at the user reviews of the bike, then other
Okay.
experts who have reviewed the bike, and that information is abundant online, especially if you look at
Okay.
YouTube, you look at our website, you look at Instagram, any platform,
Okay.
you get the user reviews of these bikes, so you get a fair understanding about which bike suits your need better. And
Isn't
once
that too
that,
early to get reviews? I mean, the kind of people using it have just started up,
no, you'll be
so what
surprised
could be?
to know,
Yeah.
Rajit, there are, like, if you just type, like, if you take the most popular brand in India, which is Hero Electro, you type
Electro. Yeah.
Hero Electro review, and
Yeah.
you'll get thousands of videos from people. They may not be the most
Yeah.
detailed reviews of
Yeah,
the
that's what I
bike, where
want to
they go
understand, like
into,
which could be the more reliable one. You will get overwhelmed with a lot of videos. So, I
yeah,
mean,
but then again,
obviously,
it's
Choose
your
My Bicycle is
personal,
reviewing it,
yeah. So we give an unbiased review of the bicycle,
reviews.
but again, it's
Yeah.
up to you to decide as to what you want to believe and what you want to ignore. And
Okay.
most of the times, like with an e-bike, the parts are major, quite standard, especially in the Indian market right now, with the rear
Okay.
hub motor and the batteries being between 5.8 Ah to about 11.6 Ah. Everything's pretty
Okay.
standard. So you get a fair understanding as to what the bike actually rides as, and you
Okay.
can take an informed decision based on that. And as
True.
usual, you can also talk to your friends or peers who have bought a e-bicycle to get
Already.
their input as well, because at the end of the day, a friend's input is the most important while taking a decision to buy
True.
an
Someone
e-bike.
is using it. True.
Yeah.
Yes.
So my next question is to Rohit. Are e-bikes allowed for racing? I read somewhere like some countries they do started allowing e-bike racing. So do you think a lot of racing plus rides would come in only the exclusive e-bike category?
Yeah, for sure. Like, I think this is already there globally. And
Yeah.
in most cases, they try to keep it in a very closed environment because the minute you have that pedal assist, you don't want to be going in an open
Everyone would
road.
rush together.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
True.
So the most popular actually is you have MTB, eMTB as a category that's
Yeah.
taken off in terms of racing. Then you of course
Yeah.
have XC, which is coming in a big way across the segment.
Cross country.
I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
we will see in India e-bike exclusive races or rides happening, and that's the best way to promote it because it's similar
Yeah.
to what happened with motorcycles, right? The minute you
Yeah.
start racing, what happens is you're pushing the barrier for any kind of R&D or technology. And as
Yeah.
soon as you hit superior technology, let's say even in F1 or in MotoGP, that
Yeah.
technology is then passed on to the consumer category. So you have better
Correct.
efficiency, you have better performance. So I think it's
Yeah.
good, and hopefully, Akshay, being an expert at this, should create some event property
Yeah, you
around
should do some
e-bikes.
rides.
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I
in the
think even
works.
the kind of, as you said, the number of e-bike riders have grown,
yeah,
and it's some kind of ride would bring all together, just to see each
yeah,
other and, share their experience as well. I think
yeah. No,
that should be a
good
good
idea. I
thing.
think you've
That's
got
Yeah,
Akshay
something in the
thinking
works.
already.
Yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah, good,
actually,
good.
just to be
Yeah,
fair, like back in the early 2000s, there were people caught riding an e-bike in the Tour de France with the motor on. So
Okay,
it has been a part of races technically, but illegally, of course.
yeah.
yeah.
So, I mean, going forward with
Sure,
I'm taking you to the last question would
sure,
be
sure.
like,
Definitely.
are e-bikes the future of transportations? People will slowly move in other countries. It slowly outrun the regular bicycles.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to sound like Nostradamus, but for
Yeah,
someone who's been following, I would say, sustainable mobility now for over,
yeah,
I would say, 10 years, I think there are two,
yeah,
three data points that are super critical to this segment, right? Which tells you that it's not
yeah,
just a utopian idea, but it's actually happening. So the
yeah,
market currently is about $25 billion globally, right? And
yeah.
they're expecting this to grow to about 48 billion by 2028. So that's just about 6 to 7 years
That's huge. Yeah,
from now. That's huge,
correct.
and a lot of this is going to come from Europe, America, and markets like India, which can
India,
consume
yeah,
in high volumes. Yeah. So I
correct.
think definitely as a category, I'm bullish. Now, in
Yeah,
terms of transportation, I think since we're talking about India here, uh,
yeah,
India will look at e-bikes first purely for recreation, sport, and fitness. I think that's going
true.
to be phase one. People love that
Okay.
bike, love the experience. And
Yeah,
then when the government is serious about actually looking at the cyclist and the e-bikes, let's say the pedelec user, as someone
yeah,
who should share the roads, and they set up
yeah.
cycle tracks, they set
Super
up
track. Yeah.
incentives like, yeah, like you said, if the
Yes. Yeah.
government can incentivize you to buy an e-bicycle
True.
so that you can get a tax benefit or give
Yeah.
you easy loans, so on and so forth. I think
True.
that's when that policy push will get more people to look at it to commute. So until such
Yeah.
time, it will be just for recreation and sport. So when it comes to commute, is when you will truly see that trajectory. And like you said, then it will become an option for transportation. So
Correct.
definitely, I'm bullish. That's point one.
Yeah.
Second, the pure economics of it. So riding an
True.
electric bicycle, the cost of riding it per kilometer is anywhere between 10 paisa and about 15 paisa. That is inclusive of any kind of replacement of battery. Now, you
Yeah.
relate that to a two-wheeler, which is at about 2 rupees, a car, which is at maybe 7 to 10 rupees, depending on the car you drive.
Yeah.
It outstrips it, outweighs it many times over. So
Yeah.
the cost-conscious Indian, with fuel prices going the way they are going to
True.
shift to a cheaper mode of transport. Third, whether you like
Yeah.
to believe it or not, even though it can only travel to 25 kilometers per hour, top speed,
Yeah.
you will
Yeah.
still be the quickest in a city if you're on
City.
an
Yeah.
electric bicycle. Yeah, because you're going to weave
Correct.
through
That's true.
traffic and
True.
get to your place quicker.
That
The
is
last
something
two,
which is going to be
yeah,
seen.
sure, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
People can definitely go,
yeah,
cycle to work. One mode of
yes,
space e-bikes. You don't sweat when you reach your office.
true,
So
true.
I think, government incentivizing this would really, I mean, even corporates can
Yeah,
incentivize people to take up e-bikes.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
no, good suggestion. Yeah. So last 2 points of this, I think
Yeah.
the fact that it's got a multi-utility purpose, right? So it can be the
Yeah.
children in the house can use an e-bicycle, elders in the house can
Correct.
also do it, and even probably people who are running errands, like Akshay said, instead of using,
Yeah.
let's say, to go to your grocery store 2 kilometers down the road, instead of using a bike
Yeah.
or a scooter, you jump onto an e-bicycle. So that the
E-bike.
multi-utility function of an e-bicycle outweighs any other mode. And last, I
Yeah.
think, is one of the few things in life which will solve two problems: your fun aspect and your
Yeah.
fitness aspect. So it's very rare because
Yeah.
while you ride that e-bicycle, the joy of that throttle or that pedal assist, along
Yeah.
with fitness, is something that
Yeah.
will prove that it's the future of transportation. So again, my
True.
views. So it could
Yeah.
be a bias.
No, I mean, it's very optimistic about the kind of e-bike market which is going in. So you said like, what kind of accessories? I want to add that also,
Yeah, yeah,
what kind of accessories come
sure.
along with this kind of bikes, which we want to go for groceries or, say
Sure.
touring or any kind of thing.
I think Akshay will,
Yeah,
it's right down
so
his alley.
Yeah.
So
so accessories for an e-bicycle are the same as what you get for a regular bicycle. So a
Okay.
lot of e-bicycles you can attach panniers, you can attach a
Okay.
front basket, and all your other standard accessories. Like some e-bikes come with lights included, so that's an added feature when
Correct.
you're riding in the dark. You don't need to invest in a separate set of lights. And
Yeah.
bottle cages, all that come are standard, are similar to what you use on a regular cycle. And especially right now, we're seeing a surge in people asking for panniers and front baskets so that they
Yeah.
can carry their groceries or carry their
Correct.
backpack when they're going to work. So
True.
it's the accessory market is there for e-cycles,
Yeah.
and it's like using it for any regular cycle. So there's no difference per se when you're using
Yeah.
it. So
And the kind of, one thing which we skeptical about is like, should e-bikes need helmet? The
they
regular
do. Any
electric
cycle needs a
bikes.
helmet.
I mean, that's true, but
yeah,
I've seen people who ride the e-bike, the e-motorbike, kind of
motorbike.
thing.
Yeah,
They don't wear helmet. They say like it's not applicable. Even we
yeah,
don't
yeah.
suggest, but what's your point on that?
Yeah, I think like safety, when you're worried about safety of the bike and the battery and the motor, it's amazing that that same consumer won't worry about their own safety.
Yeah,
So,
true. Yeah, true.
so I think uh, the part of this bigger problem can only be solved by the person interacting with that end consumer and
Correct.
sensitizing them. Because obviously you can't force anyone. He or she may buy a
True.
helmet, but it'll
Yeah.
probably lie in the cupboard. So I think the important part is to drive campaigns to say how it will
Safety. Yeah.
protect you. Yeah, that's the most you can do, unless it becomes some kind of rule which is enforced
Yeah.
by the traffic cops.
True. And one last question which I have is right now is, can this bikes insured?
Yes. So
Okay.
insurance, both insurance and finance are something that these bikes
Finance part.
have.
Yeah. Correct. True.
Yeah.
That's what
So
it is.
if you actually look at let's say EMI options that card either no cost EMI or other credit card companies are giving you, if
Yeah.
you defray, I'm taking an average cost of an electric bicycle is about 30,000 rupees, right? Now imagine
Okay.
you defray that cost by around 24 months or 12 months,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
You will then be saving anywhere between 2,000 to 3,000 rupees by shifting from your current mode of transport. And that
Okay.
saving is going to help you buy that e-bicycle. So I think
Okay.
finance is going to play a crucial role in adoption and ownership.
Okay.
And
Okay.
insurance is definitely there and will help
Okay.
people have that anxiety-free ownership,
Yeah. The
even
battery.
though
Yeah.
if it does get lost.
Correct. I think we have covered most of the topics on e-bike. We'll take few questions
Super.
right now. Uh, Someone asked like, what's the advantage of e-bike if cycling is about pedaling? If cycling is all about
Yeah.
pedaling, what is
Yeah.
the advantage of the thing?
Yeah, so that's why I said the core of an e-bike, and that's why I don't want to call it an e-bicycle. It's called a pedelec, and
Okay.
the advantage of that is that we want you to pedal, or the very form factor of this bicycle wants you to pedal, and it will
Okay.
assist you to whatever level you want to on every pedal. So what that does, like I
Okay.
said, it can help you push your boundaries. If you were doing
Yeah.
20-30 kilometers, probably double that or increase it by 50%, and give you the
Okay.
confidence to improve your range per ride. So I would look at it more as a positive rather than a negative, because
Okay.
I am not regarding the throttle only option as even a
Yeah.
mode, right? It's there,
Correct.
but the core purpose is a hybrid
So,
mode wherein you cycle and you get
and
assisted.
the other support. Yeah.
Yeah,
Someone asked like, what are the GPS enabled in e-bikes? Some places
yeah,
started, connecting with
yeah.
your smartphones. Do you have anything like that?
Sure. So the thing with GPS enabled e-bikes is that they're slightly more on the expensive side, for the simple reason that the controllers are customized, and it
Okay.
obviously has a SIM card which is then giving you this constant data. But going
Okay.
forward, I think in the next year or so, we're going to see a
Yeah.
slew of e-bikes in India that will allow you to do things like lock and unlock your e-bike remotely.
Yeah.
So probably send a code to your friend. Using that
Correct.
code, the friend could be next
Incident
to your
report.
e-bike.
Yeah.
Exactly. It will give you
Yeah.
preventive maintenance. when someone has stolen your e-bike, you can probably track your e-bike. It will give
Yeah.
you distance to empty, the health of your bike. So all of this is
Yeah.
something that's already there in Europe, but definitely
Yeah.
there's a cost element to it. But I think because India is fairly advanced in the software side of it, it's
Yeah.
only the hardware that now needs to be integrated into the current range of e-bikes. And you will
True.
see that in the coming months roll out in India.
Yeah, I mean the GPS would be a good idea because when the tourists come to India,
Yeah,
they get lost in the
true.
traffic, and
Yeah,
the route. It's easy to find
yeah,
them as well. Someone asked like, what about foldable e-bikes? How
yeah.
good they are, how popular they are.
Yeah, no, foldable e-bikes I think has a very specific function and form factor. It was actually
Okay.
born because urban commuters tend to use multimodal transport. So, like I said, from their house to a metro station, they'd want to cycle. They'd want to
Yeah.
then take that cycle into the metro, travel a certain distance, hop off,
Yeah.
and then cycle to
Okay.
work or wherever, right? And do the same
True.
reverse. So,
Yeah.
it was through that the foldable cycle was born. And I
Yeah.
think to that, they've added the similar BLDC hub motor and in most
Yeah.
cases, a detachable battery. And I think if you ask me in India, the
Yeah.
foldable bicycle is the best answer for any urban commuter because of this simple functionality. Even if it's not in the
Yeah.
metro, you
Yeah.
cycle, once you're done, you put it into the back seat of your car and you're
Correct.
off. So we're fairly
True.
bullish. We have seen some brands bring it out and very good response. But I
Yeah.
think it's something that people will have to understand its usages before actually buying it. But in
Yeah.
summary, I think they're excellent for urban India and for
Yeah.
short distance quick commute.
And I've seen some foldable e-bikes which has a battery on the seat post.
Yeah,
you know, Something which has started coming in. So,
yeah.
how could they, minimize the size, in terms of the seat posting?
So what happens is cells come in various sizes and shapes. So you can either
Okay.
choose something that's rectangular, cylindrical. So obviously they've selected a cell pattern which is cylindrical, can go within
Okay.
your seat post length. And in most
True.
cases, the capacity of that battery is limited because you have only
Okay.
limited space. So
Okay.
there's nothing wrong with having it in the seat post. It's
Okay.
just that, again, like you rightly said, it's the center of gravity. They've tried to keep the
Yeah.
majority of the weight just
Wait on the
below the
same. Yeah.
rider, and it's
Yeah.
just one more place of keeping the battery.
Superb. So we'll take last few questions.
That's
Someone
okay. I
asked
mean,
like,
that's fine, Rajat. You can,
uh,
if you
yeah,
don't mind answering. Yeah.
don't you think that in India, cycle is not used to commute from place A to place B in cities, but rather used as a mode of exercise and pastime in
Yeah.
the morning. So people are saying like it's basically not used for a commute. It's used for a fitness
Sure.
measure only. How
Yeah.
can e-bike take
Yeah.
that place?
So let's for a moment look at how many people cycle on a daily basis, right? So every year,
Okay,
about 10 million cycles are sold, which
okay,
primarily solves the daily commute. Now, these are breadwinners who have to commute by cycle. So whether
correct.
we like it or not, the number is something around 70 million people. I think as
Yeah,
per the latest report by Terry,
yeah,
cycle on a daily basis. So it's just that we don't look at them as the cyclists that we all want to be associated with, right? So they obviously don't wear
okay,
your spandex and cool gear,
correct,
but they still commute.
correct.
While India has started out on at least on the slightly more mass premium and fitness side,
Yes, yeah,
focusing on cycles for recreation and sport, I think
yep,
that category of consumer who's also likely to buy an electric bicycle, for them to start commuting, it will
okay,
only happen when the government steps in and builds the
okay,
infrastructure for that commute to happen. Because otherwise, there's always
okay,
going to be a risk. You're a minority in this ocean of automobiles that's on the road. So, to answer your
correct.
question, it will only commute will happen
Yeah.
when we have the necessary roads and legislature for it.
But what do you think would be the ideal cycle track, for the e-bikes, since
Yeah.
it's motor enabled? Uh, will it be like as good as the regular, you know,
Yeah.
bicycles, or should they
So
have a larger space?
So usually they keep cycle tracks of anywhere between about, I would say, 6 feet to about 10 feet. So at any given
Okay.
point of time, you're assuming 2 feet for the average cyclist.
Yeah.
So 2 to 3
Yeah.
people can pass, and in most cases, one way, right? And then
Correct.
globally, they don't differentiate between the cycle and the electric bicycle for the simple
Okay.
reason that now you own a Bianchi, you could be riding at 30 kilometers per hour, right? And a
True.
guy on an e-bicycle could be at 25 kilometers per hour. So whether
Yeah.
it's human power or human power with assist, I
Yeah.
don't think there's a differentiation. So ideally, they should be between 6 to 10 feet, and they will share that lane with regular cyclists as well.
My only skeptical thing is like in the power mode, if you see in the, you know,
Yeah,
e-bikes which are there in abroad,
yeah,
the
yeah,
kind of sports mode you get in, and it will be as fast as
yeah,
it's
yeah,
go. Do you think it
yeah.
might lead to accidents? I don't know.
See,
I'm just wondering.
there's definitely a chance because it's how you use it, right? So I think that surge of power also matters. But if you see most brands from stop to start, right? If you have to just use the throttle, it doesn't react like a bike because
Okay,
the power to weight ratio, because you're only working with a 250-watt motor, it's very limited
correct,
power. The minute you
true.
go to a 500-watt motor, then it's a whole different beast. But I think at
But you
250
you
watts,
yourself put another 250 from your side, right?
yeah, that's true. So there is that risk element, Ajit. I don't deny it. But
Yeah,
then that's the case with every form of mobility, right? So as long
true.
as you cap that top speed, I think you're by and large okay, but
Yeah,
you can't protect against every single incident. So
yeah. So wear helmet even if you are on a cycle track. That's what we could say.
yeah,
And I'll take the last question. How can we see an electric road bike in future? I mean, electric bike with 25 tire.
Very
yeah,
soon it will be in India.
yeah, yeah. So
Very
there,
soon.
I mean, like Akshay was mentioning, we've already sold a couple of electric road bikes through Bianchi, the
Yeah,
e-Aria that is. But I think in
yeah,
the more affordable range, you'll see it very soon for the simple reason that there are people who want to go on the longer 100-kilometer rides with their
yeah,
friends who are probably doing it on really fancy carbon bikes, but they
yeah,
don't really want to use that much of human power. So you will see it,
yeah,
but
true.
there's a good chance those bikes will not come with throttle. Because if you see the
Yeah,
form factor of a road bike, there is no place to have throttle. So it'll all be
yeah,
pedal
true,
assist.
true.
I think within a year, you should see road focused electric bikes coming into the market. And these would have anywhere between 25 to 28 tire sizes.
Perfect. And I'll take the last question.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
what
sure.
could be like few brands if you want to buy it in India? What are there in the market which people who are listening can look at? You
Sure.
guys are being the bicycle reviewers, so you can tell
Sure,
them
sure.
which brands you can look at.
Yeah, I think to name a few, we've got, of course, Hero Electro pretty much created this space, by and large.
Okay.
And then you've got new brands that have proven their worth in terms of Voltex Electric,
Yeah.
uh, Meraki Electric, their Triad Electric. And we
Yeah.
have Pedal Easy, that is one of the first brands that have gone with a mid motor. Again, it's a homegrown brand. And there
Okay.
are, I think you have brands like Switch, Copernicus, all of who
Mhm.
created their own little niche and have a good
Okay.
consumer base. You've got good
Yeah.
upcoming brands like eMotorrad and the likes. I think what we try to do, especially at Choose My Bicycle, is extensively test these products even before we review and list. Because at the end of the
Correct.
day, like you rightly said, in a young market or in a nascent category like this, you don't know
True.
what the right from wrong. Everything at the end of the day looks good, right? So you
Yeah.
mostly buy with your eyes in a category like this. So we try
True.
to filter out the brands, and there is no bias here. Whichever
Yeah.
bike is engineered well, has a focus on quality, and
Okay.
definitely has a very keen sensitivity on understanding consumers' post-sale needs. Because in an electric
Okay.
bicycle, the consumers are very different. They treat it like how you
Okay.
treat a mobile, right? So if your mobile
True.
doesn't work for a day, you're like on the brink
I
of
know.
death
Well done.
almost. So yeah,
Yeah, that's true.
it's like taking Rajith off Instagram. I'm just saying it's something like that. You can't deal with it, right?
I've been saying even the customers are now messaging about my booking. So I was like wondering, like I was reading out to that,
Yeah, yeah. I know.
people are
So
less of e-bikes and more of, my booking status.
yeah, yeah.
I don't
I
know.
know.
I
So
think,
it's that sensitivity, and it's the new age consumer. So we
correct.
like to work with brands that understand this new age consumer and are constantly there for them. Because it's a very long journey for e-bikes, Rajit.
True.
And trust me when I say this, hopefully we'll have a call 5 years from now, and
Yeah.
e-bikes would be
I think
as
we
big
should be the
as
first to
cycles.
discuss about e-bike, when that grows after five
Yeah,
years. So,
yeah.
I
No,
mean,
no, for
like,
sure.
yeah. One more thing is like how, since this motor part, everything will remain
Yeah,
same, what could be that unique thing which
yeah.
people
Good
would
question.
differentiate, are they
Sure.
trying to make it lighter or
Yeah.
aesthetic, frame, or how do you differentiate?
Yeah, I think there are three things that will keep brands apart in the future. I think the first is
Yeah,
the design and functionality. So they need to design for India. Like I said, the external detachable battery, and even
yeah,
understanding the average height of the Indian, how easy it is to get on and get off. That would be the first factor why people will choose a e-bicycle
yeah,
rather. The second would
yeah,
be range. I think all electric vehicles, people suffer from range anxiety. So the one that gives you the most efficient range at that price point will
yeah.
tend to score. And the good thing in a e-cycle is that even if I run out of battery power, I can still use human
Right,
power.
yeah,
And the
correct.
last and the most exciting thing, which Akshay is working on a couple of projects on, is that the technology part. I think
True,
we all want connected mobility. We want connected bikes, connected
true,
cars.
true.
And that for me would be the icing on the cake and the clear
Yeah.
differentiator maybe in a couple of years.
Superb. I think we are almost reaching 1 hour of time. Is even Instagram allow? I think we should go to the next level where we will have an
Sure,
advanced discussion on e-bikes.
Definitely.
sure, sure.
So I think for thanks Akshay and Rohit for
Thanks,
coming in. I
Rajat,
Thank
think it
for
you.
was
hosting
great to
us.
having you. I think this has solved many of the FAQs of e-bike customers.
Yeah, no,
So
thanks,
thanks
Rajat. Thanks for
everyone.
having us. Yeah,
Thanks everyone for joining. Have a great night. Stay safe. Bye bye.
See
thank
you.
you. Good night. Bye.
Good night. Bye.